um,
Yeah.
group chat. I have
So,
no idea how to send that. It's so weird.
and we are live. So, yeah.
The third stream.
Yeah. So, third stream. Yeah. Hopefully soon we'll have an OBT pairing. But I'm letting my brother do that one, and he probably won't do it on stream. So I'll just do a video of it.
Yeah, you're gonna post it to this channel or your channel.
Both probably.
Yeah. One sec. I'm trying to.
So we've got hi Hadley.
Hello. Let's see. Can you see that?
What is it?
That's my Euroscorpius.
Oh, nice. Do you have a black light?
I don't, but I'll try
You...
my finger because that seems to contrast everything a little bit better.
Hi Callum.
Can you see him now?
Oh yeah, he's probably tiny. He's about the size of my He's a little bit smaller than my Licelli celebus. So yeah.
Yeah, he's so small. Only L2. That's like tiny. He tried to sting me, but it didn't really work.
From Becky who Hadley? Because he's going for the OBT dark colour form.
Oh, dark color form is just to drool over. Oh my god.
At the moment I've got 4 red colour forms, including the mature male.
Jesus Louises, Ben.
Yeah, I'm a bit obsessed with the OBTs.
I mean, I can't blame you.
Yeah, they are nice. Like, earlier this month I didn't have an OBT. Well, earlier last month even.
Damn, you got a lot really quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I only have the one OBT. It's a female, about 5 centimeters.
Yeah. Is that leg span or body span?
That'd be leg span.
Oh, we have our guest. So,
What's up?
Hey, hold on. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Welcome.
How's it going?
Good, you?
Good.
It's nice. I guess we'll get started with all the questions and everything, yeah?
Yeah.
So, John, you plan to like get any more monitor lizard species? Because I know you're big onto the Ackies, but like, would you ever consider Argus or any of the larger species?
Yeah. It's mostly. I guess that mostly depends on space and such like that. Right now, I'm kind of content with dwarf monitors, easier on spacing, still exploring that realm, but yeah, I mean, probably somewhere in the future when I feel like I can provide more than adequate spacing and atmosphere and everything for them. It's not off the table, but I just want to. It's not anything to rush into. I feel like.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like with these big lizards, there's such a big responsibility, so much more than a snake or a smaller lizard. Like they take so much time and money. It's crazy.
Yeah. I sometimes see a lot of people, rush into getting larger monitors, and I've seen setups with grow tents and stuff, and I'm not totally opposed to doing grow tent type stuff. I think it can work and such, but at least for me personally, I think that I would like to provide a little bit better than a grow tent, not only just to be able to observe them a little bit more, but I think while you save some money maybe doing like grow tent stuff and such like that, it could be a little bit more easy and manageable if you do something a little bit more, I don't know, set up with, I don't know, more proper enclosure. Again, not like nothing against grow tents. I'm not really one of those anti-grow tent people. I like to do things a different way, I feel like, which would require more probably space and money.
Right.
Yeah. Like, I'm not opposed to grow tents either, but I think if you're going to get one of these big lizards, do it properly, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying, and I mean, yeah, I don't know. Grow tents is like a back and forth type thing. Like you said, like there's nothing really too wrong. The biggest problem I have with like grow tents is just I like to be able to readily observe a lot of my reptiles, and there are a couple of grow tents I think that have windows, but for the most part, it can be pretty hard to really check in on them without opening that whole I don't know front door, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
And you know, there's always you have to do a little bit more to secure a grow tent versus a more proper enclosure. So there's always that risk of them ripping out or something if you don't set it up properly. So I kind of think that grow tents are overall pretty fine for a decent amount of species, but I think if you're putting literally everything you kind of own in a grow tent, uh, I don't know. I think overall people tend to be focusing on cheaping out a little bit too much when everything ends up going in a grow tent.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I with my Savannah monitor, I had him in a grow tent for a short while, just a short while when he was younger, and even when he was just about 2 foot, he managed to rip it, just ripped it right open. He escaped. I was looking for him for hours. I did find him, but I think that's like my only problem with them is just there's always that risk factor of them being able to get out, and that's like a risk I'm not willing to take. You know, like you spend so much time and money on these animals, and you put in this commitment, and then just because you want to cheap out, you lose them.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, there's plenty of people I know who've used grow tents and had very relatively little issues. So I think like it's not the end of the world. Like, well, I've seen some people trying to use grow tents for ackies, and I really don't think that works too well, in my opinion. Um, just because ackies could be a little bit more stealthy, I feel like there could be some husbandry related stuff that might be hard to maintain in a grow tent. Um, and a lot of the fun aspect of ackies is the visual, watching them, letting them like seeing what they do day to day. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like you also maybe put a barrier between yourself and an ackie where they see you walking around the lot and such, they get more used to you. So I think there's a lot of downfalls for using it with an ackie, I would say. But
Yeah,
I don't know. I think it's fine maybe as a standby enclosure. Definitely, I've seen people who have pairs of ackies or trios. You know, it's always good to have a standby in case one of them is just in a bad mood for a week or something. I think that
Yeah.
would be fine as a standby and definitely a cheap way to have a standby enclosure.
yeah,
And I
The
think
thing is,
overall, yeah, go ahead.
with these big lizards, for me, it's the whole one of the part of why I want them is to see how they interact, because obviously Varanus are really clever, and you can't really
Mhm.
see that unless you are in the tent with them or if they're out and about.
right. Yeah, like right now the only two big lizards I have a Savannah monitor and a Tegu. Um, like the nice thing is, like one of my favorite things is if I walk into my animal room, I see my Tegu walking around, looking through the glass, you know, following me as I walk. Like just small things like that, I think not only bring your relationship with your lizard to the next level, but it just makes you appreciate them so much more, you know?
Yeah, and I think it also, I don't know, I think it creates, especially with more intelligent species and socially capable species, if you have like a non-windowed enclosure where they could see you and you could see them, and you don't always have to kind of go in there to interact with them, that kind of like makes it harder for them to get used to you and your habits and you used to them and their habits. So, you know, but when it comes down to it, I think if you have a couple grow tents going on, that's fine. But I see a lot of people. I think where I kind of get like, okay, that's enough, is when people just start going insane and using that as like every enclosure they get. So
Right.
and I think it also encourages, you know, a way to. I think too many people focus on kind of trying to spend as minimal as possible on a setup and everything like that. And, you know, I definitely think there's some merit to that. Obviously, you shouldn't spend more than you want to or have to, but it shouldn't come at the expense of the animal or husbandry. And I think once people start buying cheaply consistently, that just kind of goes into like a trend for them where they always try to cut corners.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think like I've seen people put like leopard geckos and bearded dragons in grow tents. I mean, if you cannot afford a cage suitable for a leopard gecko, I don't think you should be keeping them because it's pretty cheap enclosure for them. And like if you have a vet visit, how would that go? I mean, I think I think people like Dakota. I think he uses grow tents pretty well. I think there's people out there who know how to utilize them, but I think there's also a lot of people out there who don't. And I think the people that do use them tell the people that don't know how to use them to use them. If that makes any sense,
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some like groups I've seen that have been totally like on Facebook or something like anti-grow tent that like if you have a grow tent you're getting kicked out, and then there's people who are fanatics about them. And I think with pretty much everything, the medium is kind of what you want to go with, the middle where you don't want to get insane, but it's not like something that's unheard of, and it could be utilized if done properly. But you got to make sure you know what you're doing. It's for the right species. I think that kind of all comes into account. So I think it's kind of, there's never a no or yes. It's just kind of in the middle.
Right. I also think I think the perfect way to build cages for big lizards, it depends on what route you're going, but I think for the most part, I think just building them yourself is a really good way. Just do some research and you can build a great one. Like for my lizards, they're right now in 6-foot vivs, but they're both still young, my Tegu and Monitor. But when they're adults, they'll both be moved into a 10-foot by 3-foot by 3-foot. That's at least what I'm hoping. I'll probably get it bigger, maybe even 12-foot by 4-foot by 4-foot. I just think like with these lizards, like the more space you can give them, the better. I think that's with most animals, but I think with big lizards especially. I kind of just curve topic, but I think, when it comes to space, grow tents, I don't know. I just think they're tricky. I don't know why, but
yeah, I mean, I don't know. One thing I've always tried to do is not just hit the minimum threshold or the norm, but try to go above it if I can and offer as much as I possibly kind of can give that's manageable and kind of allows them to exhibit more behaviors and really kind of thrive instead of just survive. So I feel like, whether or not a grow tent works or not, I think that it does sort of kind of encouraging just maybe the survive aspect a little bit. I guess it really kind of depends probably on the species. Some grow tents I think could probably be fine in the thriving department, but I think there's also some species where people say a grow tent works, and yeah, it works, but it's not going above the norm.
right, exactly. I think also like if you're going to the point where you need to buy some of the largest grow tent sizes for like, let's say a 4-foot Tegu, like I bet you a good amount of money that lizard will easily be able to rip it,
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're going to use a grow tent, I think they're only suitable for babies. Because I think the main problem, at least the main reason I got a grow tent for mine was because I didn't want to have to get a small enclosure and then upgrade it, And you could just dump them in a big enclosure, but at least from my experience and my research, Savannah monitors get stressed pretty easily from such a change. So that's why I got the grow tent, but I wish I didn't. It was kind of a waste of my money, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, like, and on the other side of things, I never really ever utilized a grow tent too much, so I can't really say from personal experience. This is more just observation,
Right.
And like anything, this is kind of just my thoughts, but there's plenty of people who've made it work and use it hands on, and I'm sure their reptiles are doing well. So there's more to just one side of the story that I have, but that's kind of just, I don't know, my overall thoughts. I definitely, I feel like for most things though, if you ever see someone say, "Oh, only do grow tents," or someone say, "Never do grow tents," usually people who are just really, I don't know, kind of strict like that and have that only one stance position and not kind of situational based things, those people are usually kind of never right, and it's always kind of something in the middle. So
Right. Yeah, I agree. I think the middle is kind of the perfect number.
mhm.
I'll take out my Savannah monitor. I have him with me here. Show him off. He's getting pretty big now. He's like almost 3 foot. He's not the nicest guy, but Here he is. He's really annoying though because whenever I take photos with him, he always looks really fat because he puffs up. And like when he's basking, he just flattens. And I always have people like emailing me and like messaging me like he's obese and all those things, and I like have to explain to him that he's just like, I mean, you can see how puffed up he looks right now.
I think that's a pretty. I mean, I don't own a Savannah. I don't know much about them, but I think that's a pretty typical thing I see in most pictures of Savannahs. Is they look a little bit more ovalish. I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah.
When it's really not. That happens a lot. I mean, like for example, whenever Dell's gravid, I always get comments. Dell's the female Aki I have. Whenever she's gravid or cycling, and I have her in a video or something, I always get someone being like, "Oh, isn't that Aki really fat or obese?" And I think there's people who are into reptiles but don't really know too much, or a little bit maybe more casual, and there's always situations like that where I get where it's really not the case, and it's just like, I mean, obviously you're gonna look bigger if you have like 14 eggs in you, or some species have different body builds than other species. People like to universally apply some information they have on one species to all species, and it's kind of, I mean, it's annoying, but that's just kind of part of it.
Right. Yeah, but like, I mean, you should see this guy when he's walking around. He's oval, but you can see like a perfect crease down the side of his stomach here. And yeah, he gets a diet of almost 90% insects. I sometimes give him a rodent because when they're younger, I think higher protein is always good with Savannah monitors. That's just from my experience. Some people disagree, but from my research and my experience with them, higher protein when they're younger helps them grow. Because when I first got him, I fed him only insects because I always heard like rodents are bad, but I started giving him rodents, and he went from being like 9 inches to 2.5 feet in 5 months. And now I'm kind of slowing down the rodents and meat game that he's getting. And yeah, that seems to do well for him.
Yeah, I think the problem with them is it's the diet mainly, because everyone's like, oh, you can't feed them rodents, or they're like, you feed them purely on rodents. The thing is with rodents is that Bosc monitors, which is what we call them in the UK, they can get fatty liver disease extremely easily, and that's why you shouldn't feed them purely rodents. But also, they get almost stunted if you feed them purely insects as well. So you've really got to vary the diet with them.
Right, because they're still animals and they need fat. They need some amount of fat, right? And I feel like with the insects, they're like 80-90% protein. And that is good for them, but like, yeah, the rodents I think is also very healthy for them. Like once every 2 weeks or so, give them a rodent or two.
Yeah. I don't know. I personally, I always obviously, I mean, I feel like anybody kind of in the hobby always asks like, would you ever get this? Would you ever get that? And for the most part, personally, there's never a species I say, yeah, I'll probably never own one. I mean, some gecko, I'm not a big gecko fan, so I don't know if I'll get into geckos too much, but one monitor that I would probably say I'm a little bit, I guess, scared to get into is a Savannah, and it's just because of, I don't know. First of all, there's a lot of misinformation about them, and it always seems like there's heated arguments, and it just, I don't know. Their husbandry definitely is not as solidified in my mind as a lot of other monitors in the U.S. and such like that. So I don't know. That always has been, and I never really researched them too much, but that has always been a species where I've been like, I don't know if I want to dive into that area.
Right. Yeah, I understand that. That was my big worry when getting him. But I was kind of thinking, this is kind of how I do with a lot of my animals. Before I got him, I did about 7 months of research just to make sure I did as best as I could. And it really started to get to me how much controversy there was. I couldn't just get a solid opinion. But then I realized I have all these other opinions I think there's about 3 or 4 solid ones that people say. There's more, but the 3 common ones about like temperature and humidity. So I was just like, okay, I'll get him. I'll try the most common one, see how he does, and just focus on the individual. Because I think Savannah monitors are more individuals than other monitors when it comes to care, at least from what I've noticed. So I think if you were to get one or if someone else gets one, I think the main thing is try things. Don't be scared to try new things with them. Because you might find the secret nick that makes them grow better, tame them down, makes them more food aggressive, all those things,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I guess on a more, I don't know. So obviously, I guess the biggest relation I have to a Savannah is probably my Tegu in terms of size and diet. I mean, the Ackies are monitors, but they're pretty much inverts only 98% of the time. So I feel like diet-wise, I could probably relate a little bit more on a Tegu, and I feel like Tegus kind of have, I don't know, kind of a similar idea behind how much protein you offer, how much meat in ratio to their greens, veggies, such like that. And I feel like at the same time, there's a lot of confusion over what obesity in a tegu looks like. Obviously, in a lot of species, there's a case where, oh, that's an obese reptile. You know what I mean? But then there's kind of that build structure too. Some tegus, some monitors, their build just as an individual sometimes is just a little bit more, I don't know, solid than some other tegus. And you have different ages, you have different sexes. So like, depending on that, it's some people will be like, okay, that tegu's fat in my mind. And then, and the other thing that's really confusing is that unlike humans, when you go, you get your weight, you're like, okay, that weight's a little bit too high for my height or something like that. But for monitors, like or tegus, there's no really solidified data on what weight is too much weight for a specific height or length or anything. So you can't really just be like, okay, 13 pounds, 3 feet, that's good, or something like that.
Right.
You really kind of got to look a little bit more into it, and I usually always get maybe pretty much. I think you would be fine doing it maybe like once a year, but I do a couple times a year. I just get some blood work done on Frappuccino just to see sort of how his diet's impacting his health and if he's having normal levels within his blood. And I think that has always been a good indicator to me, at least in what's possible out there. I mean, I'm not a vet, so I can't always have access to everything and try to get, really intense information. But I feel like one of the best things I can do to gauge whether or not I'm feeding a healthy, good diet to him is some of the blood work and such like that. So, I mean, there's obviously other visual indicators like the fold and looking at tail bases and stuff like that, but you're not going to beat something like blood work overall.
Yeah, that's true. I personally haven't taken my girl to the vet yet. I've only had her for about, I don't know, 9 months, maybe less. Yeah, definitely less, probably about 7. But I haven't had her long, but I definitely am going to get her for a checkup soon just to see how she's doing. When I first got her, her first shed was miserable. Holy. It was so bad. I never seen stuck shed so bad. Like, it just wouldn't go away. And then she went through another shed underneath that stuck shed, and it all just came off, and now she looks really good. I was going to get black and white, but then I found this girl. She's like a high white red, and damn, she just looks so nice.
Yeah. I think if I was to ever get another tegu, it would probably be a blue, something like that. I really like the whites on tegus a lot, and I really like the charcoal noses some of them get. So I feel like first time around, I really wanted to get Chico in black and white because I really wanted like a massive male, which is pretty much what I got. I mean, especially Frap, he's pretty big overall, and I think I know a couple other tegus around his age that are just not as big, and I I mean, that's what I guess what I'm talking about when it comes to body structure and how solid some of these guys are. They just grow differently as individuals. So
Yeah.
definitely got that out of him, but probably a blue would be my next one. But I don't know. We'll have to see. I definitely personally think I jumped into Tegus a little bit too quickly. Just how I kind of feel about it. I mean, I've been through craziness with Frap off and on, so I would probably have to think a little bit about getting another one if I was to ever do that. But that's probably what I would do if I did.
Yeah. Same. If I ever got a second Tegu, either I would get a male red and try to breed them because I would love to do that. That'd be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Or I would get a blue. But the problem is the blues in the Netherlands, which is where I am, they cost like 800 euros, which is so much money.
Yeah, it's pretty. One of the things, since you talk about being in, I don't know who I was talking to. Someone was talking about importing and exporting Ackies in Europe. And here in the United States, we can't import or export Ackies. I think it's some Australian related law, native species to Australia. Because I was going to send one of the babies over to Adam Wickens for free. And I was getting ready to do that. And then I learned that you can't ship across the border. And I did not realize that. But then I thought that applied everywhere, but apparently in Europe you can just send cross-country Ackies and many Australian species. So
It depends on the European country though, because
okay.
I couldn't send one to KJ
Oh really?
Yeah, because the UK's just left the European Union.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, because only if you're in the European Union, really.
Yeah, it's some of those stuff is so confusing, especially lately in the U.S. with some of the Tegu laws going on down south. So there's just a lot of chaos around that stuff.
To be honest, like even though I'm not even near Florida, like I still got really nervous about all those laws because once one state starts to do it, especially such a big state in the hobby, you know, I feel like it could spread so quickly, and there's already so many people trying to shut people like us down for like no reason. And yeah, when stuff like that happens, it just kind of gets to me, you know.
Yeah, I mean, politics in the U.S. are just they get more and more crazy by the year. So
yeah, because I think one or two people found a red-eared slider in the UK. And then they were like, surely that must mean it's invasive. Bear in mind, only 2 individuals were found in the wild.
Mm-hmm.
And then they just blanket ban all slider species across the European Union and the UK.
Yep. Dude.
Not that I would ever keep one, but still.
Red-eared sliders are so invasive in the Netherlands. It's so bad. Like every single waterway I've gone to in the Netherlands, just infested with red-eared sliders, yellow belly sliders, painted turtles. It's just horrible.
We've got more of a problem with common snapping turtles, but even then it's not that bad. But we can still keep snapping turtles though.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I think the overall theme there, I think, is instead of always playing catch up, laws need to be formed about stopping it from the source. The thing is at least in the US, I'm not too knowledgeable about some of the invasive stuff going on in Europe. A lot of the invasive species in Florida and such like that, they're not going away at this point. It would take incredible money and incredible effort to really rid them from the wild. They're there to stay at this point. And you just need to take a lesson from that, in my mind, for moving forward in the future and not letting new species get established.
Right.
It's really, in my mind, a lost cause to try to get rid of the Burmese pythons, the tegus and stuff in Florida. It's just they have a foothold and they're going to breed faster than we can fight them, at least with the effort we're putting in right now. So I think overall that's the theme that needs to be addressed. It's just better laws to stop it from happening in the beginning.
Right. I saw a really interesting thing on one of Camp Kennan's vlogs.
Mm-hmm.
And he was basically talking about how people are starting to think that the green iguanas actually came in through rafting on wood and stuff like that through the ocean, because they've known to do that on islands and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes more sense that they've done that here because there is photos of green iguanas back in 1930, 1938 or so. And yeah, they weren't keeping those as pets back then, you know?
Well, there's a couple things with that kind of is talked about. Yeah, I've heard that. Additionally, there's some arguments, and I think some iguanas is one of them, that some of these species might have already been like established naturally by doing things like that and unrelated to our impact. And additionally, to give more kind of merit to them possibly coming over here, like I said, naturally, and like what you were saying, is that pretty much each Caribbean island has their own species of iguana. And
Right.
that happened from them just spreading island to island and then adapting and evolving based off of that island's, what that island had. So it would, it wouldn't be unheard of for that to happen in Florida and at other places around the Caribbean and such like that.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, I also think like it doesn't do good to ban them because or to put permits on them, right? Because any people that do have them, like casual keepers, right, that have like tegus, iguanas, Burmese pythons, etc.
Mm-hmm.
If they suddenly have to go spend hundreds of euros or dollars on permits, spend hours and days and weeks on doing all that stuff, like they're just going to release it, So I feel like you're going to have more animals released if you put the permits in.
Yeah, I mean, I'm against permitting as it would be implemented today. I think in theory, for some problematic species and obviously venomous species, permitting is not like is probably a good idea, honestly, to just keep track. I mean, there's always going to be irresponsible keepers out there, so I think it's a good idea, but when you do permitting, at least in the U.S., it's usually not about the actual permitting and about the environment and about safety. It's usually about a way to have more power, governmental power, and more control, and about money. So that's the real problem when it comes down to how stuff like that's implemented here, and that I'm not for. But if they were to actually do permitting in the way it's supposed to, I think that's not a bad idea, but I don't think that'll ever happen.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I did have one thing that me and Ben wanted to talk to you about.
Mm-hmm.
That would be like invertebrates. I mean, Ben has more knowledge about these things.
Yeah, I keep quite a few different species.
Yeah. So I actually started by trying to get into inverts. Now I don't still know too much about them, but I got a couple when I first started because I was in an apartment. I really was into beetles and looking at them, and like I'm probably going to be very naive talking about them because, like I said, I don't know too much. But I really wanted a hobby. That's how I kind of got into reptiles, because I spent a lot of time doing my work, and I did my work as a hobby, and I was like, I need to do something else. So I've always been loving into animals and being in an apartment. I didn't want to get anything too crazy. So I got a couple different species of beetles. And I forget the website, but it's like probably the most popular website for getting inverts in the US. But and I'm trying to remember the species of beetles I got. But what really threw me off that I just did not spend too much time looking at is how much time they spent as grubs and going through that cycle before they actually became that beetle that was, what I wanted to observe and look at, and was a little bit more active. So that was one thing that totally threw me off there. But how I kind of entered the hobby was looking at inverts.
Yeah. This is one of my inverts as she's running down my arm. Wait one second. Tiny little scorpion. Ben, do you know the common name for these guys?
It's just the car park scorpion. Euscorpius carpathicus.
Yep, that.
Yeah, I'm hugely into spiders, mantis and scorpions. They're my main focus at the moment. Although
Yeah,
I do keep a few oddballs like the giant African train millipede.
oh, cool.
Yeah.
I've been thinking. So right now, my Boyd's Forest Dragon is in kind of a temporary setup until he or she gets a little bit bigger. But that's a little bit more of a confined enclosure, and I've always really liked. I've liked spiders, but not tarantulas. So I've always
Yeah.
really. I've been considering using that enclosure if I feel like I find a species I really like, look into it, and it would do well in there. Maybe fill that with a spider or something like that. But
Yeah.
we'll have to see. But that's kind of been something I've intended to do. I haven't really looked into too much, but that could be possible. That could be quite possible.
Right.
Like spiders wise, true spiders, which is probably what you're going to be looking into.
Okay.
Something like the Ziggy Stardust Huntsman.
Mhm.
That's really cool. Huntsman spiders, they're
Yeah.
fast. That's the only problem with them.
You should look into David Bowie. What's the full name for those?
Heteropoda David Bowie, that's the Ziggy Stardust Huntsman.
Oh, yeah. Those are really nice, really beautiful. They get pretty decent size as well.
Mhm.
They're nice. I think they're really nice. Also, a cool species would be like giant orb weavers.
You can't really do that in a glass tank. They need really high ventilation, so you need a mesh tent or something like that.
Yeah. I don't really know much about true spiders, to be honest. I have 11 tarantulas at the moment. I have 2 scorpions, the one I just showed you, and I have a death stalker, which are pretty high up there on the venom list. I mean, I don't think it would kill me, but it could kill me. They're pretty gnarly. And just a species I'm starting to get back into. I used to keep them a lot a while ago, but a species I'm going to get back into are centipedes. I love centipedes so much. I think they're really smart for a bug. Like I think they think more. I think they consider options, and I think they're really interesting. If you would be interested, I think that'd be something to look into. If not to keep, just to research. I mean, they're awesome.
Yeah, I'll have to see when I get to the point because I don't want to. I'm not quite there yet into thinking about all that, but definitely something. I know one thing I've always kind of wanted to do, and what's it called? I kind of always been fascinated by is setting up sort of a really good, proper ant colony. I always love seeing now, and I don't know much about this either, but I feel like everybody's seen like Ants Canada or on
Yeah.
YouTube and such like that, and they just how they work as sort of a hive mind and work together, and kind of I don't know, it really fascinates me, and I've always been really interested in observable species, whatever they are, just something that you can watch and you see something intriguing and interesting, and you learn something from.
So the thing is with ants is they're really cool because you can probably get them for free. Like you just go out and catch a queen in the summer, and then you just raise them.
Yeah, I in my garden I caught a last year's Niger queen, which is like the most common species. I think those are black crazy ants, Ben?
Black garden ant.
Black garden ants. Yeah, I raised her a bit. She laid a couple workers. I think she had like 5 workers, but yeah, I don't know. It's really slow in the beginning. It starts to speed up fast, but in the beginning it's really slow, and I was just kind of done with it, so I just released her back in my garden with the whole colony. And yeah, she has a nest in my garden now. I can watch the workers come out every now and then.
Yeah, from what I've seen, ants seem a little bit complicated to really set up and get in a thriving environment. Sometimes, I guess that might depend on the species, but I feel like a lot can kind of goes into them if you're going to do a little bit of a setup on your own. So, but that's always, I don't know if I'll ever do it, but that's always been something I've been really intrigued by.
Yeah. Most US species are pretty easy.
Okay.
It's more when you get into tropical species that you really start to struggle.
Okay.
Yeah, like bullet ants and species like that, trap jaw ants, leaf cutter ants. Those are the species. Yeah, but there are fire ants in the U.S. There are species.
Oh, yeah. They got the Solenopsis invicta or whatever.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I think ants are really cool. Honestly, like if you get a native species, it's probably going to be super easy because you just have to simulate humidity and temperature the same as it is outside for you. Feed them, make sure they have water. It's so easy, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's intimidating though because there's so many, and like you're scared of escapees and such like that. But
Well,
I mean,
I have so many ants that run through my house naturally. I'm sure it wouldn't change much of what already goes on, but yeah, no, I hear you. Inverts are definitely just a different type of. I don't know too much about them, but those have. If I was to explore further, it really kind of depends on how the future goes. Those are probably two areas of inverts that would be intriguing to me to set up.
Yeah.
But obviously, a lot more. I would have to do. It would be exploring a whole new area of keeping. So
it's a whole different ball game.
Mhm.
Yeah. And Ben,
Right.
now the Heterometis spinifer, yeah.
No, this is the Heterometrus Peter's eye. I've got 4 of these. These are really cool. Scorpions in general are awesome. They're very forgiving. Like if you forget to feed them for like a few months, they'll be fine.
Ben, did you just say 4?
Yeah, I've got 4. 2 juveniles and then 2 adults.
Damn. I used to have a Heterometis spinifer. That's the giant Asian forest scorpion, by the way.
Yeah.
I feel like the most intimidating thing to me about a scorpion is not the scorpion itself, but when scorpions have babies. It's just like a whole mess
Wait,
of just babies on them.
I'll show you centipede babies. That's like a whole different level.
The problem is, well, with scorpions, is they need a flat area to produce babies. So long as you don't provide that, you shouldn't end up with them.
That's good.
Right. Yeah, I'm gonna get some centipedes soon, as I said, and really try to breed them successfully. I'm really interested in that. I think that's so cool. It's really hard. Like the sexing process for them is a challenge by itself. You have to. There's 2 ways: knock them out with gas or drown them. Just like knock them out, and then you can pop them like a snake, or you just I don't know, do the risky way and pin them behind the head and then pop them. I'll probably do the last one because I don't feel like knocking them out. I feel like it's risky, but yeah, a lot of people knock them out.
It is yeah. The only problem with centipedes is that they escape and they've got some pretty bad venom.
Yep. I don't know how well you can see this. I'll try to.
Yeah.
Glare super bad.
Mm-hmm.
Can you see that?
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah. So they.
White is just babies crawling around inside her, and I think that's so cool because centipedes have really good mothering instincts for a bug.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've always kind of been one of the things I really didn't consider too much in reptiles, and just I guess animals in general, especially animals I feel like I personally at least take a little for granted is there's actually quite a number of reptiles and other species that have actual natural parenting instincts that I find really, really intriguing. Like I never really knew that about tokays too much. And stuff like that.
I've had tokays in the past. I had one. Honestly, it was the worst experience of my life. Not because of like the aggression. I'm used to that stuff. I've kept more aggressive species. I keep a savanna monitor. But it was just like such a challenge. I mean, dude, first of all, he escaped so often. He just escaped. The second you open the cage, he ran. He was picky eater. Most tokays are not picky, but he was really picky. He was full of parasites, which I knew getting into, but he was even more riddled than normal. The vet said, I mean, geez, it was a disaster. And then he just randomly died. I spent like hundreds of euros on him, getting him healthy, and then I find him on the bottom of his cage dead. So
Yeah, I don't think I'd ever get a tokay personally. I mean, I'm not a big gecko person. I just personally found, how they're paternal, maternal, and stuff like that to be interesting.
Yeah.
I would just say overall, geckos are just definitely not my cup of tea. But
yeah, I'm not a big fan of the terrestrial geckos like leopard geckos and fat-tailed geckos, but
Mhm.
some of the more exotic tree geckos I'm a fan of. I have a male crested gecko, and I'm probably going to get a female because I would like to do a project with them.
Mhm.
But species like Phelsuma and the leaf-tailed geckos, I forget the scientific for them.
Europlatus.
Europlades, yep. Species like that I think are so awesome. They're so unique, you know?
Yeah, I think to me, geckos like it's not like I dislike them, but I don't want to own them. You know what I mean? Like I will if I see them, if I'm like at an expo or something, or even like a zoo, like I find them fascinating and intriguing. They're just not something I personally want to explore in my own husbandry for the most part. So it's not like I just never want to see them or anything, if that makes sense.
Right, yeah,
It's
no, of
just
course.
I enjoy other people keeping them.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
get that. For me, that's with the leopard geckos, you know?
Mhm.
Like, I don't think I would keep one. I might consider it because I personally enjoy all reptiles, and I would consider keeping all reptiles if I found the right individual, of course. But, like, I appreciate seeing other people's leopard geckos, and I think, if you're a person who's keeping and you say you're a reptile fan, and then you see a certain species of reptile and just be like, it's gross, or I hate that species or something, I
Mhm.
don't know. I feel like it's not like a, yeah, I don't know. If you're a real reptile lover, I feel like you appreciate everything, you know?
Yeah, and like I said, like I also never know where I'll be in like 10 years. You know what I mean? So like right now, I try never to say, like I said, I'll never get this species or whatever, because I've had it in the past where I'm like, I don't think I'll ever do this. And then it happens 3 years later. So, I could be in, who knows how, I could own like 5 geckos in like 3 years and I wouldn't doubt it. So, there's definitely nothing out there that I would say no to. At least right now. It kind of all depends on money, size, space when it comes down to it, and then just how I naturally evolve with interest in certain
Right.
species. So,
Yeah. That's a good point. I mean, I feel the same. I mean, going back to that maternal instinct of animals, I think one of the coolest maternal instincts for reptiles would be the lace monitor. The way they lay their eggs in the termite mounds, and then when they're ready to hatch, they dig them up, and they know exactly when they're ready to hatch. I think that is just nuts.
yeah. I mean, in a much lesser degree, I always think there's no really paternal instincts or maternal instincts for Ackies, but I always just find it fascinating how they can locate the exact necessary, I like to say, ingredients for laying their eggs, where it has to be a certain level of moisture and it has to be like 86 on the dot. And if they don't find that, they don't lay it. And I just think it's really cool how they just really can identify that area, and then they're just willing to hold on to those eggs if they don't find that. So just even stuff like that is pretty interesting to me.
Yeah, for sure.
Lace monitors are definitely very intriguing to me. I really love the natural. I'm not really a fan of like the bells too much. I mean, they're cool, but I love the natural kind of, I don't know, it almost looks like stained glass in their neck patterning that they have. I've been seeing a lot of the one that Ty Park got for Iguanaland. He's been posting a lot about them. And I love how they look. I mean, they're so inaccessible here, but I would love a lace monitor.
Yeah, for me, I mean, there's actually one breeder in the Netherlands who does kind of all the big lizards. I mean, that's where I got my tegu from. She breeds black dragons. She just had a clutch of crocodile monitor eggs laid.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she has all the stuff, so it's definitely nice to have that resource, and I'm definitely, still talking to her, so that's nice to know people in the hobby who have such animals. But I think the Bell's face is a little bit overrated. and the normals are a little bit underrated, honestly.
Well, I just personally, I mean, it's really your cup of tea. I've always loved the natural look of a lot of reptiles. I'm not really a big morph fan or anything like that, and there's nothing wrong with being. It's just I've always loved just how they're naturally produced. And I mean, all these like morphs and different things, they're naturally produced, but just the ones you more commonly see out in the wild and such like that. I've always just loved those patterns and colorings on a lot of reptiles. So I've always just kind of been a fan of those types of looks. So that's kind of where I am with lace monitors, I guess. But
Yeah,
Same.
it's like I like morphs, but I prefer normals, and I don't like anything with large amounts of white on it, like albinos, pieds. I'm not really into that kind of thing. I just don't think it
I've
looks
never been
right.
a fan of albinos either. I don't know. It's just I don't really, again, like, I mean, it's just not my cup of tea. Not saying that there's something exactly wrong with it, but I've just never really been like, that's worth $5,000. Like, you know what I mean? Because they're always like super expensive and stuff, and I'm just like, it's just, I don't know. I just never gotten the fascination, but everybody wants to see like an albino or something like that of every species out there, and I'm just like,
Yeah, I think the two albinos that I really admire are albino red tegus, like pure albino red tegus, and albino alligators. Like
I will give you albino alligators. I've seen those. I've seen some pictures of like having a really kind of darkly red alligator next to an albino one, and they look like the yin yang symbol. Those have always looked really cool in contrast. Definitely, again, like there's elements you can admire, but not exactly want yourself. So I think that's kind of where it's at.
It's like, I do have a few albinos, but like one of them was for free, and the other one was an animal that I personally had to take in, if that makes sense, because it wasn't in a great home. And then my garter snake was just given to me for free by someone.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
So is your praying mantis eating there? What kind of praying mantis?
Oh yeah. So she's a giant rainforest mantis.
Cool.
Heroginum majuscula.
Yeah.
Praying mantises. That's probably another thing that I don't know if I'd ever own, but they've always really fascinated me.
Wait, Ben, how do you pronounce Hiradula?
Herodula. That's how you pronounce. That's how you pronounce it.
Nah, it's like HEI RODULA, Hirodula.
Herodula.
I used to pronounce Gila for so long.
Yeah, that's actually one of my
I do that stuff a lot. I'm not one of the things. So like I study for my PhD right now, and I've always wanted to teach and be a professor, but I'm so bad at names and such like that. So I get so terrified when there's some spelling that I'm just like, I have no clue how to pronounce. And that happens so much with reptile species, especially scientific. So I try to avoid them as much as I can.
All my scientific stuff, I pronounce it. Do you know the YouTuber The Dark Den?
Yeah.
Yeah, I pronounce all my stuff from him because he like got me into inverts again. So I pronounce all my scientific like him. So I have that kind of Croatian pronunciation of it, and Ben has that like proper English pronunciation. I think it's funny to hear the difference.
I think well, I talk to a lot of tarantula taxonomists and such, but this one's a really funny Latin name. This is my green bottle blue tarantula.
I got the scientific. All right.
Chromatopelma cyanopubescens.
No, it's Chromatopelma cyanopubescens.
Yeah, it's a tough one. But there's only one in that genus, so you could probably just call it by its common name, and everyone will know what you're talking about.
But I think there's a lot of species that look like green bottle blues. I forget the individual species, but I remember there are a couple that look a lot like them.
the Dolotheli diamantinensis, which is the Mexican dwarf blue, and then there's the Aphonopelma moray, which is the Mexican jade fuego or something like that.
Yeah, no,
But
that's right. Yeah, those are the two. Yeah, they look a lot like. So I think scientific is still better, but
I think the problem is with
there's some species out there where they're either really not well defined or well known, that you kind of have to sometimes go by scientific, and even the scientific sometimes gets a little muddy. I know for say elfin dragons, I think there was recently a new classification of them, and there's a lot of argument for a lot of their different scientific I don't know, namings or whatever you want to call it, that some of them are incorrect and some of them are misclassified. So when it comes to them, it's kind of, if you want to talk specifics, it kind of can get a little messy if you try to go by common names.
Yeah, I also think like I think the main species where scientific is the most important is Terraphosa.
Yeah, because they're all Goliath bird eaters.
Yeah, there's like a ton in the genus, and they're all called Goliath bird eaters.
Well, and then you also get situations in the hobby where scientific doesn't matter to a lot of people. You know what I mean? There's some, it doesn't matter as long as they're from the same, I don't know how to, but like there's technically different for like Ackies, I guess I could say. There's technically different species of Ackies out there. They're not all Acanthurus, but people refer to them as all Acanthurus. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because that's all that matters when you're getting an Ackie for the most part. If anything, people differentiate them by saying top ender or red or yellow. So
is top ender a different locale, or is that just like a morph?
It's not. I mean, it's kind of like, I don't know how you would ever classify a morph for an Ackie, but I don't think they've really gotten to that point either. But it's a different locality, pretty much different area in Australia that they've come from and originated from, and that's really, I think that's really the only real locality we have of Ackies in the U.S. because there's a lot more apparently in Australia. I haven't really seen too much, but there's supposedly an island north of Darwin that has like all black Ackies and such like that. So there's some in Australia that seem to have more localities that I would love to see at some point, but unfortunately I don't think we'll ever get in the US unless the law changes.
Right. What do you think of Timor monitors?
I haven't really looked into other dwarf monitors too much. I feel like a lot of people who get into Ackies also start getting into other dwarfs, so who knows? I think if we're just talking in terms of dwarf monitors, Ackies, I think, exhibit the best overall, just desirable traits for a pet reptile. But there is definitely a recent kind of interest in other dwarfs coming from there. So, you hear. Go ahead.
What I love about Ackies is they're small monitors, but they act like big monitors, and sometimes you don't get that with other small monitors.
Right. I feel like what are they called? Varanus. The really, really small ones from Australia, like really tiny.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I forget the name. There's like Tris something.
Oh, those are the Tristis monitors. Those are not the ones I'm talking about.
Maybe I'm confused then.
Yeah, no, I don't know. It's like I don't know. They max out about this smallest monitor species in the world. Wait, I'll search it up because they're monitors, but I don't think they should be monitors. Like
I can picture it, but I don't remember off the top of my head what you're talking about. And I also do tend to get confused with some of these dwarf species.
Yeah.
Which is which. And also, timber monitor, they are a little bit bigger, I would say, than, I feel like an Ackie is a little bit more manageable. But then again, a lot of these more dwarf monitors, I guess, a lot of their size anyway is tail. I mean, like an Aki can grow to be, I think biggest I've ever seen is 3 feet, but usually 2 to 2.5 feet. But at least half of their length is their tail. So it's really not like they're a real girthy or, thick type of monitor.
Yeah. So the species is Varanus sparnus or the Dampier peninsula goanna. They get about 16.3 grams with a length of 23 centimeters or 116 millimeters. It's tiny. But those species, they really don't remind me of monitors. They remind me of like, I don't know, special leopard geckos, something like that. That's the best way I can describe them. They're just so small.
Yeah, I think the coolest thing about just Varanus overall and just talking about monitor lizards is just the range of different body types you have. So
Right.
I just think it's cool how you have these incredibly large monitor lizards, and then you have these dwarf species, and they're all kind of part of the same family.
I think that's great for the hobby because that means I feel like monitors are such an amazing species. I think for me, they're my favorite species of animal in the world, right? And I think they are just perfect for everybody because no matter where you look, you're going to find one that you could probably keep. Whether it's the one I just said that's teeny, teeny, tiny, or a croc monitor, like something for everyone.
I definitely think the epitome of keeping reptiles in my mind is kind of a couple. It really kind of depends on your interests, but in my mind, when it comes to intelligence and just social capabilities, you have a tegu or you have a monitor. Now, I feel like tegus are much more socially adept and I don't know, more willing to accept you and have that more social intelligence. Where monitors, they have just kind of like a more skeptical level of intelligence. I definitely think monitors have the more cool level of intelligence where they do all that problem solving and such like that.
Right.
Where tegus, I don't really think they exhibit that too much unless they're really put in a situation that motivates them, like solving for food or something.
Yeah,
So
I think
monitors, go ahead.
like you said, are better at problem solving, but they're much more skeptical and they're much more wary of danger.
Mm-hmm.
I think tegus are kind of a species where they are smart to the level where I think they understand what is dangerous and what is not more. And like because of that, I think tegus are definitely the smartest lizards in the world. Like a lot of people say, crocodile monitors or water monitors are more.
To me, it's like maybe one or the other is more smart. I don't really think too much research has been done on that, at least to my knowledge. But either way, I think they both just have a different type of smart. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, they're both smart. It's just kind of what aspect of smart do you enjoy more as a keeper?
Yeah,
Right.
it's because, as you said, KJ, tegus know what is and what isn't dangerous, but for something like a crocodile monitor, they don't need to because they are the apex predator.
That's true. I mean, I think we should. I think something that needs to be more well known is the crocodile monitors because they are the true longest lizards in the world. I read somewhere that there was a couple specimens that got over 14 foot long, which is just nuts, man. I mean, I'm pretty sure Komodo dragons usually max out around 10, 11. So, yeah. I think
the craziest thing about me to croc monitors is just how they can be perched up in trees just naturally in their natural habitat. And I could only just imagine we're used to probably being able to go outside for a hike and it'd be relatively normal, but you're just going for a walk and you just see a large croc monitor just perched up on a log or something. That just must be really insane to see, and how their tail is utilized to be able to do things like that. So they're really cool. I mean, I definitely think that when you're talking about the large monitors, as cool as they are and as much as the hobby hypes them up, they're definitely not for everyone because you definitely need to know what you're doing. you definitely need to, and this is even somewhat, I mean, it's not the same level, but something you should be aware of for a tegu too. I mean, like, they're reptiles you need to respect because they can do some damage.
I mean,
you know, depending on the attitude you have, how they, it's just, there's things you really need to really understand their angry behavior and when they don't want to be messed with, and they're not something you can just get. And if you get a bite, oh well. Like if my Aki bites me, it's more shock than anything. It never really leaves a mark. But if Croc Monitor bites you, you're probably losing a hand.
Yeah, that's
even just looking. Oh, sorry, Ben, go on.
That's the reason why I wouldn't want one. But also going back to monitors, I think there definitely needs to be more of a reclassification, because I don't see how something like the Savannah monitor or the Blackthroat monitor, which is so completely different to say something like an Aki or Varanus Salvator, the Asian water monitor, how they can be the same genus. It just doesn't work.
I think they could still commonly be named like monitor, like Savannah monitor, water monitor, but I think we should get more intergenus classifications for them.
Mm-hmm.
And split it up more, because I think that'll also help people just kind of figure out what they need more genus wise. You know, if like they're talking about African monitors, you know, like white throats, black throats, Cape monitors, Savannah, stuff like that. You know, that could be its own. And then
it's like all South American tarantulas, South American terrestrial tarantulas are called bird eaters, but they're all different genuses, and none of them actually prey on birds either.
Right. Yeah, I mean, even so, like when I picked up my Chromatopelma cyanopubescens, the green bottle blue, from a pet store, some kid walked in the pet store. He's like, "Look, Dad, it's a bird eater." You know, like everyone just calls them bird eaters.
Well, I mean, I feel like even that's like for a general person who might not know much about reptiles, I think even that's kind of a little bit more impressive than, look, it's just a tarantula. Look, it's just this. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even think regular people would go that in depth. They just some people would even just say a tarantula is a spider. You know what I mean? So like,
yeah.
Netherlands though, like tarantulas, everyone just calls them bird spiders, or the Dutch word would be vogelspin.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, everyone knows that, right? I don't know why, but everyone knows it. So it's not like as cool as it would be in America, or as like, oh, this little kid actually knows something, you know? It's more of a, even big spiders are called that. Even not tarantulas, just like big spiders.
Yeah. Another problem with common names actually in spiders is spiders like this, which is the Tarantulads mirinus. This is a mature male.
Oh wait, Ben, hold on. What did you say?
Tarantulads mirinus. That's it.
No. It's Tarantulads murinus.
No, if you talk to actual taxonomists on this one, I actually looked into this one, but they're either called the orange baboon tarantula, the African orange beauty, the orange chevron, or what I like to call it, the orange bitey thing.
Hey, if you guys give me 1 second, I'm just going to go to the toilet really quick.
Mm-hmm.
Ben, take over.
Yeah, so that male is going to be paired with a female on Tuesday, and I hope he doesn't get eaten, but
yeah, that's not something I really have to worry about too much, so I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, it's weird because at when I joined the invertebrate keeping hobby, last year, around this sort of time last year, I said I'd never breed anything. Since then, I've got a breeding pair of Western hognose. I've bred the Venezuelan sun tiger. I have a breeding pair of these mantis, and then of course I'm breeding the OBTs soon.
Yeah, I remember when I got into it, I never really saw myself breeding anything. I really don't. I don't really get too much into breeding even now. The only reason I really started getting into breeding Ackies is because I just was just so into them. I kind of want to just learn more and see not only their behaviors together as a pair, but kind of go through the experience of seeing what it's like to breed and just kind of expand my knowledge on that species. And that's kind of the only reason I went into it. I mean, like, I know a lot of other people I've talked to who do like YouTube channels and just generally talk to. A lot of them kind of just rush into breeding each and everything they could get their hands on. That might be somewhat popular in the hobby. To me, it's just, I think if you're going to breed, it should stem out of pure interest, and if money comes along with it, that's cool. But like, you know, overall, I don't think you should just try to grab up each and everything unless there's like sort of a passion there. And you know, it's fine if you breed multiple species and such like that. I think that's normal, but I think, you know, obviously have a passion for those species.
Right.
Yeah, like
Definitely.
I have a passion for all invertebrates, really.
Mm-hmm.
And this species is really cool. You probably won't see it here, but hidden in there somewhere is the dwarf wood scorpion. I'll quickly grab a black light for it, but they're parthenogenetic, and that's really cool.
Right. Yeah, I'll explain. Do you know what parthenogenic is?
Mm.
So it's like basically when they can self-reproduce.
Okay.
So they just pretty much produce virtual clones of themselves. Yeah, they can just kind of produce babies whenever the hell they want, I guess.
So she's that blue sort of blob there.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah.
So
And
I guess my question off of that is how do they get much genetic diversity as they kind of
Well, they're
go on from generation to generation? How do they adapt to changing environments with no new?
well, they don't. That's the one problem with them.
Okay.
They're
I'm
all
just
exact
curious if
clones.
there's more to it when you're having something that's self-reproducing, if there's a way that they can, you know, adapt.
No, that's like the one downside to them. I mean, they're literal virtual genetic clones of the mother.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're all female. Every single one of them is female. And once they hit maturity, they just produce eggs. Mourning geckos, that would be a perfect example of parthenogenesis. Small species of gecko, about 2 to 3 inches, produce like 2 eggs a month from the age of 6 months on. I mean, they're really cool.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so if one gets an illness, it could probably wipe them out, and that's the downside to it. But it's a whole lot more effective than reproducing sexually because they don't have to find a partner.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, definitely my 2 favorite parthenogenic species and my 2 favorite scorpion species would be Titius stigmarus. I don't know the common name, and Hottentotta. I also don't know the common name. But those, I just found out today that they are parthenogenic, and they were already my favorite scorpion species. And now they're just even cooler because, yeah, who doesn't want free babies?
The problem is with those species is I need a permit to keep them in the UK.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
But people have been bringing them in illegally, and I have been pretty much cracking down on them, reporting them to local authorities and whatever. But the thing is with invertebrates, people don't really care. They're mainly focusing on venomous snakes and stuff like that. But
Mm-hmm.
Right.
you could just buy one of these super dangerous scorpions or spiders and send it in the post. And then, yeah, if it escapes and it stings a postman, whose fault's that going to be? And whilst if you buy it legally, it goes through a certain process or where it goes through a government regulated thing.
Yeah, I think that's the big problem with the Dutch hobby, in that it's there's zero regulation for venomous snakes, venomous spiders, centipedes, scorpions, alligators, crocodilians, turtles. The only regulation we have over turtles are sliders,
Mm-hmm.
which is so dumb.
Well, the even more interesting, thing for the U.S. is that there's never it's state by state. So like I could go to Pennsylvania and I could buy, like a saltwater crocodile probably. Like it's just so loose there.
Right.
without any permitting, anything that justifies jumping into. I mean, you like I guess a bigger example, Tiger King. I mean, like you could pretty much get tigers and stuff like that in some states with minimal processes. So like but then you go over like to the next state over, and it's like you can't even have like a hamster or something like that. So
Yeah,
it's just
but
like it's really diverse law wise here, and having it state by state, it could get pretty crazy.
Yeah.
another thing with the US though is that each state has its own climate pretty much, but the UK is basically all the same.
True.
So if you released one species in the States, it would invade one state and then probably die in the next. But if you release something in the UK, it will just take over the whole country.
Yeah, I mean that's somewhat true. I mean, like tegus are making their way up into Alabama and Georgia now. I don't think they could probably survive a winter there, but
I mean, if they went into deep hibernation.
but I don't know. I mean, I don't.
Yeah,
I can't say either way, but I'm not going to rule anything off the table. But it's definitely more likely they survive in Florida than in Georgia or Alabama. But they can spread to other states that are relatively close and nearby. But I think generally, in terms of just like I guess the social aspect of the hobby, like I don't personally think that anybody should just be able to go out and I don't know, get some of these really venomous and intense species sometimes. And I mean, it just allows for transition state to state to be a little bit more easy and unregulated. So I don't know. There's a lot of fine lines there, and it's kind of just really annoying to navigate. But I don't know. Just
yeah, like when I bought my Deathstalker, I mean, I guess to put it in perspective, I'm pretty sure it's a grade 5 venom, right, Ben?
Yeah, no, it's grade 4 for Deathstalkers, but that's still pretty bad.
Yeah, like it could kill a small child, and it probably wouldn't kill me or an adult, but it could, depending on how bad you react to it. I mean, they're gnarly, it's nothing to mess around with. And I'm 14. I walked into a pet store and alone and walked out with a Deathstalker, and they just sold it to a child. That's how loose the regulations are here. I mean, there's like zero regulations. I can buy African fat-tailed scorpions, which are one of the most venomous scorpions in the world, online for like 30 euros and have it shipped to my the next day.
Mm-hmm.
So
because when I was in Africa, in southern Africa, I actually saw the effects of what an African fat-tailed scorpion could do to a person. They survived, but they were in critical condition for a week or two, and they're no joke. And if you can just go out and buy one of those without any regulation, like you could probably sell one to a kid in the Netherlands, but it's just not great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I almost actually bought a couple African fat tails, and I probably will get some because I would like to breed them. But I also know, like, I'm very confident in myself. I mean, I was working with a lot of venomous scorpions when I was in LA. And yeah, I've been working with like the venomous scorpions inverts for a long time. So I'm pretty confident in myself and how to handle them. But like, I think it's really bad that you can just sell them to anybody. I think really dangerous. And also, like, I don't care if you want to buy one, go buy one, But the problem is if you're not ready for it and you get stung and you die, because we don't have anti-venom here. Why would we have anti-venom for an African species, If you die, like, that puts such a bad name on the hobby. And that just makes it more easy to shut it down.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's not just if you die. Like, if you're sending them through the post, if a postal worker gets stung, or if it escapes and stings a kid.
Right. Yeah, exactly. With family. I mean, even like with my family, I have like secure cages in a separate room where no one else goes. Because it escaped and it stung my mom, I mean, she could die.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not
that's where regulations, if they were focused on safety and being proper, are nice. Like I know a lot of states that have venomous laws, like you said, they have to be in a room that's separated by a lockable door. You have to label them correctly, like all that stuff. Those are good regulations in my mind because they make it harder for accidents to happen.
Yeah,
Right.
like
You don't have
I
those.
can see regulations, but then a blanket ban, that's something else. Like,
Yeah.
if I if if the UK decided, look, you can't keep these scorpions, but you can keep these others. If they just did a complete blanket ban, I'd have to give up probably a quarter of my collection.
Yeah, well, I think another thing too is that a lot of countries and states and whatever you want to talk about don't really consider is that a straight ban on pretty much anything, it does not even reptile related, never really solves a problem or gets rid of a problem. It just makes it more dangerous, and people find ways to still obtain certain things and keep certain things and do certain things just kind of through a black market, and that just makes it even worse overall.
It makes it worse for the animals because that means if they're caught in this illegal situation, they're probably going to be confiscated and euthanized, and it's all just because this government put regulations and the people under the regulations couldn't just follow the rules because they're selfish. And I think it's just overall bad to ban things. I think permutations should be more. I think even for snakes like ball pythons, I think just exotic animals should have permutations, even simple ones, like signing forms or letting the city know you own them.
Yeah, or just being, I know for some species, especially in environments when they're in states where they could probably survive out in the natural environment, like some of those regulations are you must report if an escapee happens. Like I think elements like that, like those can
They can help.
be good, and not only an escapee happens, not only you reporting that, I mean, you could report that, you might never find it, but like that leads to being able to generate statistics that could also help the hobby and be like, look, like, I mean, you have an invasive species problem, but there's only 3 escapees from the hobby. So like you can't, if you have data like that, it could potentially be helpful to hobbyists to say like, this isn't us that's causing this problem.
Right.
Yeah, like I've been since joining the hobby last November. I've been offered illegal scorpions a total of 5 times now, and well, all by the same seller, and they knew I was 14 at the time, and
Yeah.
it's just irresponsible as well.
Well, I mean, as with anything in a lot of the world, money kind of if people can find a way to make money, they'll do somewhat, even if it's allowed unethical things.
Yeah,
To obtain it. So, but that's with every hobby though, and unfortunately it makes the rest of the hobby look bad and often stands out much more than any of the good things the hobby does. But that's just, you always have people like that where, most of the hobbyists love animals and love keeping them and want to respect them, and then other of them just keep them in horrible conditions and want to make a buck off of them. So
yeah,
I mean,
I also think like if we had I don't know how to word this. I'll think about how to word it. One sec. Ben, you are gonna.
yeah, like I mean, legally, I can own a few venomous things with dangerous venom. One of them being centipedes, another of them being this. This is a giant water bug, and they sit in the water like that, like a leaf, and they wait for small fish to come by. They use these arms on the front to grab it, and then they've got like what you call a rostrum in between them, which it uses to basically spear its prey, and that will inject a really strong venom, which could give you hallucinations for a solid 2 hours, and pain will be immense.
Right. It's like the Heteroscota maculata.
Oh yeah, I've got one of them as well.
I got 2. Those also can cause pretty bad hallucinations.
Yeah,
But
but
is there any lethal centipedes? I feel like most centipedes, they just hurt like a really bad.
there have been recorded deaths, but most of them
Are allergic reactions.
Yeah, most of them are allergic reactions.
Right. Yeah, I've been bitten by a couple centipedes. I've been bitten by Scolopendra polymorpha, Scolopendra heroes, and what's the species name? It is the flagtail, the Alapus. Alepus?
Alapes grandidieri, yeah,
Right.
or
Yeah.
multicostus.
Yeah. I've been bitten by one of those. So I've been bitten by three, and dude, they hurt so bad, man. It's like, oh, dude, it's just miserable.
Yeah,
Level.
and they're not even bad venom.
Yeah.
Like the Asian centipedes, like the Vietnamese giant, which is Scolopendra dahani,
Right.
that could mess you up.
Not kidding. Yeah, I just got two of those species. Yeah, to breed. So let's hope I don't get bit.
I've been really lucky. There's only been a select amount that I've been bitten and stung by in my collection. I've been bitten by my Amazon tree boa, my my ball python, leopard geckos, my jumping spider, and I've been stung by this really tiny scorpion, which you're probably not going to see because it's so small. But
No, we can't see it.
uh, well, I'll quickly grab it out. Let's hope I just don't get stung.
Like in my collection right now, I haven't been stung or bitten by any inverts. I got bit by my Savannah monitor a bunch. That really hurts. Um, and then my boa constrictor and most of my other snakes, but that's about it.
Yeah, this is the one that got me.
I feel like did it pierce skin? Because my Euroscorpius, he didn't pierce skin when he stung me.
This one did actually pierce skin.
Damn.
I've noticed that the US Scorpius don't seem to have the best aim either when it comes to stinging. They'll
Yeah.
go for the toughest patches of skin.
The one venomous species of scorpion I got stung by was a bark scorpion in LA. I was doing a herping trip and I like slid down this dirt mountain and I just got stung on the leg.
Mm.
I had it really hurt and it swelled up and I felt pretty sick, but I had a pretty mild reaction compared to some other people.
That's good.
Yeah, I mean, those are the most venomous scorpion in America. So I got lucky.
I think a lot of the problem, I feel like some of the problem is when you get bit, stung, whatever, by something venomous. A lot of unless you're in kind of, if they're native to the area in the U.S., a lot of hospitals are ill-equipped to treat that bite or that venom, and also lack knowledge of how to treat that venom.
Exactly.
If you got bit by a Gila in like Arizona, that would probably be somewhat standard knowledge for some hospitals. But if you were to get bit by, like, let's say a Gila in, I don't know, New York or Pennsylvania or something over there where they're not really around, some hospitals really might be Googling some answers to treatment.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the main thing I was scared about with my Death Stalker when I bought him, and that's just like, if I get stung, like, there's no point on going to a hospital. Really, they're not going to know what to do. They don't even know a species. They don't know where it's from. They don't know what the venom is. They don't know how to treat the venom. So I just did a lot of research on how to handle it myself. So I was more prepared myself. Because I just think the hospital wouldn't help.
Yeah, sometimes they even get it wrong.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, I don't want them to
Especially
injecting me with snake anti-venom or some shit like that.
with the Deathstalker, you've just got to hope that you're not allergic.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah.
Because if you were, that would be severe bad news. But the thing is with Deathstalkers as well is that they're easy to deal with if you take the precautions. Like, they can't climb smooth surfaces. They're pretty slow in comparison to other invertebrates.
Wait a minute. My Deathstalker bolts faster than any tarantula I've ever seen.
Yeah, well, you get tarantulas are slow. You should try something like my Galamorphs, like Macrotheli or Linotheli.
just forgot the species. The Heteroscota maculata. You know how bolty those are, Ben?
Yeah, but they're not fast. I wouldn't class them as fast. Faster than a Brachypelma hamori, but they're not that fast.
We're just like bickering here, and Herp is just
Yeah.
kind of a little bit confused here. But yeah, I don't know. My Deathstalker is definitely okay. Maybe he's not fast, but he is psycho. Any gust of wind or drop of water or touch of sand, he just strikes the ground 30 times.
Yeah.
Yeah, gnarly.
But that's the thing with Boothids, and that's another thing why I wouldn't get one, is because they're too defensive. And I like animals that I can actually almost interact with, and I use them for education purposes, and really that's not practical with a scorpion that's going to put me in hospital or kill me.
No, I don't think that'd be handy.
Yeah, I prefer species too that are more interactive. So I kind of get you on that. I mean, I have a couple, like, I like to be able to know I can handle them, at least in a need situation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I would say, like, my crested gecko is not too handleable. I haven't worked with him too much. And then my Boyd's forest dragon, they're not really too handleable overall, but I know if I needed to handle them, not that either one of them would really do too much damage, that they would at least be kind of chill with it.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
I have a great admiration for venomous. I plan to keep venomous snakes when I'm an adult, and I'm really into the venomous stuff because I think I like pushing myself, and it's kind of like bad, but I like sometimes free handling centipedes and some of the more venomous scorpions. Definitely not my Deathstalker or any of the really bad stuff, but I like pushing myself a little bit with that, and I think the venomous stuff is such another level of beauty.
But there's also some venomous stuff out there that, they're venomous, but they can also be kind of chill. I mean, some of the venomous snakes are not. I mean, I don't know too much about them, so maybe I shouldn't even speak. But I feel like whenever I see venomous snakes, they're a little bit more kind of defensive, and they're I don't know how to put it, but like,
no, I get you.
Something like I don't know, something like even a beetle lizard or a Gila, those are pretty relaxed overall. And they usually don't. Typically they usually don't bite, but there's that risk. So I feel like that's a little bit more doable than some of the ones that are venomous but are constantly just like freaking out if you get kind of around them.
Right. Yeah. I think like the venomous reptiles can be very calm, but the venomous invertebrates, they're just like meth heads. I mean, they're psychos. Almost all of them, I feel like, would not hesitate a second to bite you. Or like anything like that. They come equipped and ready to use it.
That's why I don't hold any of my tarantulas, because they will get me. But another thing is I got my Amazon tree boa just purely because I wanted a defensive snake that I could almost practice for hots. But of course, I go and get the only tame
Amazon tree boa.
Yeah. Of course, my Amazon tree boa is probably the nicest snake out there.
That's funny.
Dude, I really wanted to get a boega. The mangrove snake or like the cat snakes. Those are so nice. I love the stuff. So, John, would you ever? I mean, I'm sure you would, and I'm sure you have. But like, do you plan on getting snakes soon?
Probably eventually. They're not top on my list. I enjoy monitors. I want to explore a lot more monitors first.
Right.
But I've never. I don't know how to put it. I have nothing against snakes. I find them interesting and intriguing. And I would be very surprised if I never ended up getting a snake or two or something like that.
Right.
I think the main two things right now is, number one, like I said, they're not the precedent. I'm really interested in expanding my Aki project, and then once I get more space, I'll probably get into larger monitors. And number two, as long as I'm renting, it's hard enough to convince people to let you rent their house with reptiles, but then at least here in the US, snakes are like reptiles times fives to a lot of people. So,
Right.
I luckily the place I rent was okay with my reptiles, but the first thing they asked me was like, "Do you have any snakes?" So stuff like that, I got to kind of put up with until I own my own home. Somewhere to live until then. So that's kind of been another reason I've kind of haven't looked into snakes too much. I get excited a lot about, different species and stuff. And whenever I research them, it gets me more excited. So I try to stay away from looking into snakes too much, because then I feel like I'm really going to want to push that a little bit. And right now, I just don't think that's too feasible and smart for me to do.
Weren't you planning on getting one of Dakota's Mexican black king snake babies?
I don't think I've ever seriously. Overall, I don't think it's really possible. I think, at least in my current situation, like I said, I don't think anytime I get a new reptile, I have to kind of get it approved. Usually that's pretty straightforward as a lizard. I don't think it would be pretty straightforward if it was a snake. Not saying that's like justified. Obviously, I think it's ridiculous, but it's not my house, so I have to go by the rules of the landlord and the original homeowner. So I don't want to get something. I obviously can't get something if it's not going to be approved to be here, because then I'm not going to be allowed to be here in general. So, right now it's not feasible. I don't think I've ever really, as cool as it would be and how as open as I would like to be about it, about getting one. Right now it's not possible, but probably just to a lot of people obviously a lot of people would love to see me get a snake, and I think that would probably maybe be one of the first things I do once I get my own place.
Nice.
Yeah, but I think that's because I've been watching your channel for a long time, so has KJ. But that's something I've always respected about your channel is like lizards often get seriously overshadowed by snakes. Like, sure, snakes are cool, but
yeah. So I mean, that's what I kind of said by the precedent. My precedent, and I say this too, like I said early on, like there's no species of reptile out there that I will ever I really have said or will ever say in the future that I definitely won't explore. And I definitely 100% think at some point I will get a snake or two. That said, I think lizards will always be what I predominantly own, and are the precedent. So I really want to explore those species more. I mean, there's a lot of agamids I want to explore. There's a lot more monitors I want to explore. So I think I will always be predominantly lizards and such like that. Monitors probably specifically. But I mean, at the same time, I do think I will still explore snakes too a little bit, and then see how I enjoy that. But I don't ever see the focus really ever being like, okay, now we're going to get really heavily into snakes. I've just fell in love too much with lizards so far, and I find them, I don't know, just to be my cup of tea.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I think every keeper has their niche, I guess you could say, Mm-hmm. Like Ben, I mean, dude, he's like the invert guy, I mean, he knows some stuff that I could never dream of knowing, I mean, the knowledge this kid holds is crazy. And I think personally, my thing is just like reptiles, snakes in general. I know a lot about snakes. I've kept a lot of snakes. I work with a lot of snakes. I have a couple lizards, some tortoises, but mainly.
And I think a lot of, if we're talking about, I guess, in the realm of content creators, I mean, let's talk about like Camp Kennan, since he was brought up. He's known very much for turtles, tortoises, and then some monitors, but he also has like snakes. He doesn't really focus too much on that type of content. He does time to time.
He actually has are snakes. Like, it's surprising.
So, but so there are keepers that have the focus, what they really enjoy and stuff, but you could still own, and do some content on some lesser species and still be enthusiastic about some other species. So I think, it wouldn't really change my channel's dynamic or focus too much to, explore other options. I mean, I think predominantly what got me more and more into reptiles is I just love learning new things and more things about them. So I think that includes at some point looking into a snake or two.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I obviously right now I actually don't have very many snakes. I just have the boa constrictor and the corn snake because I'm trying to start to get into breeding, and just in the situation I'm in right now, I couldn't breed snakes. So I had to think a little bit business because, I want to breed what I like, but I also need money, and I'm trying to breed as a business. Like, that's what I want my full-time career to be is breeding, right? So I sold most of my snakes, and I got a bunch more invertebrates to do some breeding with them. And yeah, that's what I'm starting to focus on now. But yeah, I keep a little bit of everything, which I think is what I'll always do. I don't think I'll ever just keep one group like lizards or snakes. I think they'll always have everything.
Yeah, and I think that's, everybody needs some diversity too.
Right.
You could absolutely love something and spend 90% of your time on there, but I think if anybody spends 100% of time focused on one particular aspect, they're eventually going to get a little tired of it and want to see some change.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I think, I mean, I keep invertebrate, I keep reptiles as well, but I don't do videos on them purely because that's not where my main knowledge is, and I don't want to give out the wrong information.
Mm-hmm.
People are always like, show your reptiles off in your videos and whatever. Like, I'll show them in briefly, but really, I wouldn't feel comfortable sharing them, if that makes sense, because I know a bit about them, like just basic care. Well, not basic care, advanced care.
I do a lot myself too. Like, I'm very confident in my Aki husbandry, and I do a lot of videos on Akis and information around them because I'm confident in it. But then, I've never done there's videos that I could do that would do really well that I haven't done because I don't feel like, number one, I feel like there's better information and better content creators out there doing information on them. And I don't think that my information is as good as I'd like to put it out there. And that could be like, I never done like a Tegu care guide. There's particular aspects of Tegu care that I've done videos on because I felt confident in it. But overall, I feel like if, we're talking about the Tegu care overall, I'd rather you go check out Rose City Reptiles and get care information on him overall than get it from me as like a general care guide or something. Bearded Dragon care guide. I feel like there's people out there there's a lot of information on beardies. I feel like, I'm still learning a lot about bearded dragon stuff in my mind. So, I don't want to do content because it's popular and will help my channel. I want to make sure that what I put out there, I'm confident in.
Right. I think that's definitely one of the most respectable aspects of YouTubers like Ben and you and Dakota and, some of the smaller YouTubers, Rose City Reptiles, is they understand what they know and they're not going to share information over what they know. And I think people who try to do that, and I think the main people that do that are like pet tubers, like pet tubers. Mm-hmm. They just try to give all these information because they want to make videos and content, but you need to understand, like, you can keep it. Like, I'm not going to make a Savannah monitor care guide because, even though I'm confident in my care for him and I know he's getting the best care he could, like, like I said, I think they're individual. So I think you have to figure it out for yourself.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a lot of it.
I think that's one thing. Like, we've mentioned their name on the channel before, so I'm going to do it again. That's one thing that annoys me about Go Herping is, sure, he knows his stuff, but he needs to realize that his way of doing things isn't the only way of doing things.
I think that's just a mindset probably in the invert hobby as well that a lot of reptile keepers have, is that they, especially, I feel like, I see a lot of push and pull from more experienced older keepers and the new up and coming kind of keepers who are going to kind of take that place, is that I feel like there's a lot of newer keepers that are much more open to exploring new ways of doing things because they're still learning. They're, when you're younger, you're still trying to figure out new information and such, where once you get older, you kind of get into a routine a little bit more. So I feel like there's a lot of push and pull there about, oh, this is the only way to do it. And then, people coming in with new ideas, especially newbies to the hobbies. I always see that the best kind of, and there's a lot of bad ones, but the best new ideas kind of come from fresh minds. So I always learn a lot from new keepers who come in and kind of question the standard, because they don't have that bias that's been sitting there for years and that you've been doing over and over. So whenever a new keeper says something, a lot of people usually want to dismiss that, but I try to think about it a little bit, because I'm like, they have a fresh mind, a fresh take on this. Maybe this is something worth exploring. So I see what you mean there. And I don't think there's ever one way to do it. And I think any content creator who puts content out, it's never 100% either. So I always try to encourage people who watch my channel. I love, so Aki content isn't really that popular, definitely in comparison to how popular Akis have been getting. And I love that there's other channels like Scales 13 out there who does Aki content, because I want people to go out there and talk to other experienced people and form their own opinions and not just take 110% of what I say as the truth, because I backtracked on many things. Yeah. I've grew. So you always need to take in multiple sources.
One thing that I really don't get is tarantula keepers saying handling isn't good for the tea because they don't get anything from it. Well, I'm going to do something just to piss those tarantula keepers off. I've got it here, my male Redney here. But
Brachypelma Hamori or Smithy?
This one's Hamori, but I do have a Smithy. Is that they say the animal doesn't benefit from it, then they go home and pick up their ball python or whatever. Even though it's proven that snakes don't benefit from handling, and it's just how hypocritical the hobby can be as well.
Well, the other thing too that I really wish, so obviously, at least in the U.S., and I would have to imagine across the world more so, what leads a lot of research is the economical benefit that could come out of it. If we research this, can we make money off of it? And a lot of the reasoning why, a lot of research doesn't go into, I feel like, reptiles or inverts is, for the most part, they're not economically beneficial to the wider public. Whenever you see really reptile research done, it's usually on something like Gilas or something venomous, because they can provide anti-venom, or they could provide an ingredient to a treatment for some illness. But you don't really see anything investigating like reptile emotions or reptile, if they have what their capacity there is. Because you're not really, if you discover something, it's really not going to be able to let people make money off of it. And I really wish that we could find a way to get more research done on the intelligence capabilities, the social capabilities, the emotional capabilities of reptiles, even inverts, because whenever we get new studies out, it's usually a lot more than we expected. And people like to try to claim things too based off of no data. And if we finally had enough data on certain aspects, it would be really easy to shut people down who want to come out and claim false things and be hypocritical, because then you could just link a couple research articles that just say this strongly says the opposite. So it's really stinky that, to put lack of a better term, that we don't have heavy research in this area where we could kind of dispel these rumors that people grasp onto so much.
Yeah, I agree that the thing is with spiders is they don't have the neurological capacity to feel emotion. So how do you know it doesn't benefit from them? Because they don't know any different. Most spiders just feel hatred towards everything, but
I think though, I personally think it is impossible to say this animal doesn't benefit from this thing, this animal needs this thing, because first of all, individual, like I said, I think individual is a huge play in these animals. Second of all, if I take my ball python out, people say it doesn't benefit from it, but I think it does. I think it's getting enrichment. I think it's getting new senses in its Jacobson's organ. I think it's learning. I think it's picking up things that people wouldn't see. Same thing like how people say tegus should free roam sometimes, like occasionally going out because they benefit from it. I think you can't say tarantulas don't benefit from it because we don't actually know. We just think, what would they get out of this? But we don't know.
I rarely say something is ever false because, number one, at least in the reptile hobby, we don't have much information on a lot of things related to that. So, while something might seem unlikely to you, like you said, it's really hard to ever say something's completely true or completely false with a lot of things because we don't have enough information to really back it up. And there's been crazy things discovered throughout life. And, at one point, people thought, Earth was the center of the universe. And, there's just standards out there that people were 100% confident in that was not right. So it's kind of, I always hate to there's some things where I'm like, you probably shouldn't do that, but I'm not going to say it's not true because I don't have the evidence to say that. And
right.
To me, that usually backfires because then people think that means that, they're enabled, they're good, they can do that.
Right.
But I feel like it's also a lie to kind of shut down each and everything. There's a Tegu researcher, and again, Tegus are definitely not, I have knowledge on Frappuccino, and I'm really still learning a lot from them, and it's definitely not the same level of confidence I have in my Aki care. But being that my vocation is around research, I understand research very well and how it works. And I was having sort of a discussion with a Tegu researcher from Canada about what's it called, about how brumation affects the reproduction organs. There's been rumors that if they don't brumate, especially their first year, that their organs could be stressed out and be infertile. Now, generally, that is just...
Sorry. No, go on. Continue.
Generally, currently, that's not believed to be true. And I really don't personally think there is much merit in that in evidence. I mean, I think Bert Langerwerf was one of them who said that was possible, and he was very respected. But it's something that you need to talk about. It's part of the literary background of Tegu research. So when I talk about, Tegu, brumation, I like to bring that up because that has been thought of as possible from notable breeders. And I just want people to be aware that this is a past. This is the history of it. And this is what people thought and might even still think today. And sometimes I get flack for bringing that up. And I'm like, you can't really say this is where it's at today without saying kind of how we got there and kind of previous lines of thinking. So that's kind of I feel like even people who've done multiple research articles on a species, as few and far between as they are, can sometimes get caught up in their own research and speak about it a little bit too highly. So even researchers kind of get into that mindset where they're kind of spreading false information.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think most of the stuff I've done, I've carried out by myself. For example, taxidermying invertebrates, penning them and stuff like this.
Mhm.
That's always helped me out with just learning general taxonomy, because beforehand I thought the wings on mantis worked like those of beetles, with the elytra being the hard shell on the outside, with then the flight wings on the inside. But you can clearly tell that these wings, these top set of wings here, they're clearly used for flight as well. And I could have looked that up, but I'd much rather do it myself, if that made sense.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I think experience is always 10 times more important than knowledge, because you can know as many things as you can. You can do years of research, understand every single behavioral key that those animals give off, right? But
Yeah.
I think experience will always beat it, because if you are a keeper who's never kept an animal in their life, right? And then they do a year of research and decide to get a water monitor. I think that's dumb. I think it's just a bad idea. I mean, you can say, but like, okay, they know what they're getting into and yada yada yada. But I think it's just dumb. I think it's just a bad idea.
Generally, research is supposed to come from experience. You have you have a hypothesis, you have a theory, you have an observation, and then you're supposed to collect data based off of trying to observe that hypothesis or what generates and what goes on. Unfortunately, there's a lot of kind of biased research out there based off of how the study is set up. Like, for example, if you, first of all, while there might be a research article that comes out and says something, if it's only one research article saying that, it's intriguing. It definitely says that this should be further studied. I definitely would not take one research article in itself as strongly strong evidence that something's true. You usually want a group of research articles that come together and form the same theory from different authors to lend enough credence to something for that to be taken seriously. Number two, if let's say you try to say claim something about tegus, but your pool of tegus is like 5 tegus, it's decently probable that something could just by coincidence happen in 5 tegus that you think it's a fact, but it just was a coincidence. So you need to also look at the pool of the numbers, the quantity when looking at research and make sure that there's enough there that you can be confident in. It's a lot more confident if you observe something happening in 100 tegus versus 5 tegus.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, let's find another example that maybe makes more sense. Let's say with inverts, right? Because I think that's a species where there's less research being done than in reptiles. So you need more experience when you're dealing with venomous invertebrates, etc. When I got my Death Stalker, right, I still did a lot of research. However, I needed to learn for myself the safest way to work with that animal and how to keep myself safe and the people around me safe. And it's not, keeping animals is not only about caring for the animal properly, I think, because you can find all the research you want about how to care for that animal, sure, but you need to know how to care for yourself when working with that animal and for the people around you. And
for the most part, research is a basis because everybody has their own individual circumstances. You might know that the optimal basking temperature, perhaps for an Aki, would probably be between 140 and 160, and then they might say that this wattage bulb should do that for you. But then your ambient temperature might be different from their ambient temperature, and you might need to compensate for that. So there's always a difference in experience versus research, but research generally should just be taken as the basis, and then you do further, of your own stuff based off of your own observations and evidence. But go ahead.
Some people say, with an OBT, the Tarantulads murinus, people just say they're fast, but it doesn't specify how fast because tarantulas, when people say they're fast, they range from it can move quickly to it literally teleports.
Yeah. Oh, dude. The teleportation sounds dumb, but I've worked with some species of spiders. I haven't really worked with teleporting tarantulas, but spiders, where you see them one spot, they get a gust of wind, and they appear on the next spot. They're so fast you can't see them run. And for someone who doesn't have experience, that is so stressful and so hard to manage.
Yeah. And to your point, a lot of things claim certain elements, like you're talking about how fast. There'll be claims of pictures of a sunset make people happy, but what does happiness mean in that definition? You know what I mean? How do you define happiness? Right. So when you're talking about how that tarantulas are fast or something like that, fast means different things to different people. So unless you have a really thought out core definition of fast or happiness in some cases, that's not going to be helpful unless you define those.
Wait a minute. Ben was just kicked from the stream. Wait a minute. He'll probably rejoin in a second. Yeah, I think he froze. He cut out. But yeah, no, I get your point. I think that makes sense. But I also think oh, there he is. I think all research is, like you said, based from someone else's experience, right? So research can equivalent to some level of experience, but I still think personal experience wins the biggest
I
slice of
think
cake.
the thing is people say I'm like earlier on in the stream you said I know a lot about invertebrates. I'm the kid to go to. Not really. It's just because I do my research. I look into the animal extensively, not just a care.
Right, yeah,
Like,
same. Yeah, but that makes you the person to go to, I think, because if you research every aspect of behavior, care, yeah, everything, every nick and cranny of a species, even if it's not your own species, even if it's a different species, I was recently researching gastropods, and I was also researching Geoplanidae. That's like a genus of worm. Just things that I don't keep, but I think are still interesting enough to learn about. And I think learning about species you don't keep also gives you experience.
yeah, like when it comes to the, I'm going to use it as an example again, just purely because I love them. The OBT, people say you have to keep you fossorial.
Right.
Like when I was in Africa, I saw them nesting at the bottom of shrubs where you can see them webbing in the shrubs. So, in fact, they're fossorial, which means they dig, but they're also semi-arboreal. So you have to provide the space to dig and the space to climb. And that's how I've found the most success with these species, and that's why I've paired them before successfully, and why I've got maximum results from it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's also ethical concerns you would maybe need to. So, like, I guess for example, so like Frankotes says that monitors, specifically dwarf monitors, because that's what he focused on, don't need UVB. Um, Now, there was no actual formed research around that. That was more, I guess, antecedent or observational from him. But being that he's a big name, especially in dwarf monitors, a lot of people paid attention. Now, that would be something I would love to study myself and implement as a research project and actually get data points on. But there's ethical issues with that. If let's say that dwarf monitors, in this case, Aki monitors, do need UVB, and then I had a subset that I gave UVB and a subset I didn't give UVB, and then the subset that don't get UVB but should have UVB develop deformities because they don't have UVB.
Yeah,
That's
but
not something ethically I want to do. So it's hard to
yeah,
kind of disprove that without risking an ethical dilemma of that sort. So that's kind of troublesome. I would love to really
yeah.
dispel that, but I'm not willing to risk deforming animals and reptiles I care about.
But yeah, but the thing is in particular is they don't get deformed, and if I because I provided the space to dig as well. If they didn't benefit from climbing, they just wouldn't do it
Mm-hmm.
because they could have just dug, which they did do, but they also provided web in the branches. And I think again with going back to the Akis and zero UVB, I think that's not particularly true because they will always have access to ultraviolet rays if they're being kept outside. It's just the
Well,
intensity of how you're keeping them.
the whole thing there is I mean, I don't particularly. I'm not saying I particularly believe that. The main reason why I would love to do research study on that is to sort of dispel that. But the whole thing is when you have someone who was very big in introducing a species um, in a hobby and kind of getting that started, say things like that, people are going to pay attention to it and believe it in some sorts, just because no matter kind of the basis for it. But that's something pretty hard to dispel with actual research without risking, issues.
Right.
Yeah,
I think though, the main reason I think experience is important is the behavior of the animals, because I feel like it's pretty hard to research that. I'm sure you could, right? But it's more difficult. And if you have experience with the behavior of the animals, I feel like you can also understand their care more, like as a personal level. So I think that's my main reason for thinking experience is so important.
Mhm.
But yeah.
Not only look so much into how your animal's going to behave, but really it depends on the individual animal itself.
Right. Yeah, of course. That's why I think experience comes in, because once you learn that each individual animal has individual behavioral keys, then you can understand the animals to even better levels.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely for hands-on keeping, experience is key to doing that.
Right. But yeah. Anyway, I think we should maybe cut the stream because I still have to do some feeding tonight. And it's 10 o'clock for me. So,
Sounds good.
all right.
Yeah. So thank you for joining us.
Yep, of course, happy
Yeah.
to.
All right. See you later.
Yeah.